Well, thank you for having me. My name is John. I am basically manager at the woodlot, and I'm going to kind of start the presentation with my background, kind of where it all started initially. We could go back in time all the way to childhood and kind of having a fascination more with timber, I think, in my younger days. But really inspired by Native American structures and that kind of modularity and portability. So playing around in the woods, that kind of thing. But I'm pretty much going to pick up in around 2010, 2011, kind of go from there through my education, and that's all going to tie into where I'm at with the woodlot. And then I think kind of save the formal woodlot explanation for the end here. So bear with me. We don't even have to read the text. It's kind of basic AI generated stuff. I'm going to talk right through it. But this is where I find myself today, is manager of the woodlot, and pretty much as a partnership with the city of Providence. And this basically started, as I said, 2010. Do we know what parkour is? Anybody?
Yep.
All right, awesome. That helps a lot. I have some video here too to help demonstrate that. So back in 2010, I was kind of involved in teaching parkour in Providence, and it was just kind of like.
Hey, you're still walking. Good man.
I'm still walking. I'm still here. And the city was super open to it, and I started out at Brown Street Park, which is right down the street from Brown University. And it's kind of becoming a hub for more adult fitness as well, because I was about 20 years old at that time. And so outside of, play spaces that are available to either older children or into adulthood, the city was just starting out to develop those. So that was a really exciting time. I kind of got adopted into the system more or less and kind of met who is now the superintendent, but at the time was just managing nonprofit organizations, and that kind of ties into where I'm at as well. So back in the day, started with that, and now this hopefully will play. Ooh, maybe because I don't have Wi-Fi. That's fine. There's no internet access right here.
Is there Wi-Fi? There it is. There it is. Yeah, right.
No, the choses up on a wall, the trucks go up the wall, laying on something. Go back to bars, jump up onto it. It's, you're physically moving through space.
That's right there. I don't know.
Ordinary effort. Gymnastic moves on non-gymnastic effort.
Yeah.
You're taking a natural environment and you're basically doing gymnastic moves on a run.
This is a very good explanation. Yeah, while we're waiting for the.
You're on, I think.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully the video will load. But he was asking what parkour is. Yeah, it is natural movement, and that's what we were teaching, and it is through obstacles, and that's really more what that is about, both physically and metaphorically, was an overcoming of obstacles. So ourselves in Providence is a very dense urban environment, so there's plenty of obstacles, and you get very creative with what you decide to do throughout those obstacles. Awesome. And of course, we're going to if not, we're going to go into my laptop. I have another presentation set aside, but it kind of jumps the timeline and quick but continuity. Yep, we're going to skip right through the videos. Those are just simple demonstrations of what it was. So, at the same time, I was at community college studying fine art and design, and that was basically because growing up, outside of a bit of dabbling with woodworking, it was drawing, sculpture, painting, and I kind of took that innate interest, figured that's what I could do in my educational experience and development, and that didn't quite align, I guess, with my ultimate interest. I just didn't understand where else I could put that. and especially going through kind of a traditional college format, I had to pick something. So I found myself there, again, just doing pieces, exploring different mediums, also hinging on developing more like a corporate branding for the parkour organization that was developing on the side. And this ties into where we're going to go next, which became my portfolio after I transferred. And I was also starting to do like large scale installations. I don't know what I was doing. I was just all over the place with medium and just trying to figure things out. But woodworking really still hadn't taken off. It was more just a subset of like, how would you say it? Skill set that I used to accomplish these things. So after CCRI, I found myself at RISD, and that became more tangible because I ended up choosing industrial design. And as a transfer, you go right into your major. And within industrial design, it's a heavy focus on physical product, at least in my time there. UI, UX, and kind of more digital product was kind of the other end of it, and it just didn't call to me. But at my time at RISD, we had multiple shops, metal, wood, basically a maker studio, which was like for model making and things like that. And this is where I got like my first shop experience, more or less. Got into the wood shop, kind of started to fall in love with that process. Equally though, I have to admit, I also liked metalworking, other forms of product making and prototyping. So this would be an example of something made on a CNC. So I got heavily involved in how to use CAD and other forms of design software. And like this was actually a working prototype we had that we shot and documented across the city and wrote it all about and made like a commercial. So still kind of all over the place, but taking that diverse experience. And outside of that, by, let's see, senior year, I knew I was going to take a 9-to-5. I wasn't really enamored by kind of like the office life, which I always thought was more of an adventurous type of pursuit if you're studying design, particularly industrial design. But then observing all my like peers, they were all working like these office jobs. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm much more of an outside dog. I had to be like out and about. There's too much energy for that. So decided I'm going to start my own studio, primarily focusing on design. I had kind of initially leveraged that parkour organization. I had some initial designs for that were kind of products. And then through the timeline of events, ended up negotiating with the parks department to build some physical equipment. And the skills to kind of build the physical equipment came out of my time at RISD in the shops. So there was a skill set there that I could actually design and make things at that point, or I thought I could. And I just said yes, and that became basically my first job outside of school there. So this is a little scale model. I was not aware at the time that you don't go that all out per meeting. So I showed up to my first meeting with the city with like an actual display, and they were blown away, like taken back by it. But I was like, oh, you can't do that every time. I think somebody in the department told me that. I don't do this every time. Just come in with drawings, something like that. But it got the point across, and this was working through a grant and basically for peanuts. And also rolling into starting my own business. I mean, it's all the, like I was living out of the office space, finding tooling. I mean, I was going on Craigslist at the time. Now it's more of a marketplace, but salvaging anything that I could to get my hands on to kind of get something going. So outside of all the odd and end jobs, because I was doing furniture and jewelry and like consulting for design work, this was like the first installation of something to scale and something that really sparked the interest in terms of the entire process from the back end of the design to the actual install, which at the time kind of started to blur the line between contracting because we had to bring in heavy equipment and also we'd say like a blend of actual disciplines between the woodworking to primarily black locust was kind of the first intro, which is brutal to work with. It's invasive here, so it's actually fantastic to get rid of. But at the time, I had to drive out to like Western Mass with a U-Haul to this guy's plot, and his name was Blue Sky. And this is like the most bizarre experience, but I didn't know where else you would source logs. And now you can go to the woodlot. I'm the guy for that plug. But at the time, it was like, I have no idea. Where do you get logs? Where do you get lumber? Especially, this was a call from the city. It was either I'd be white oak or black locust to be installed in it as exterior grade lumber. And I had no clue where to go. And I had a budget of like 5 peanuts to do it on. So this is my first install. very exciting. I mean, it's kind of inclusive of ribbon cutting. So Alorza was the mayor at the time, so he comes in, literally a big pair of golden scissors, and you snap the ribbon. I'm like, holy hell, like I got to do more of this. That was fantastic. That was way better than any job I was doing because I was doing little dinky things out of my shop, and again, just making nothing. But that was a lot of fun. That basically rolled into the next install. This was at Woonasquatucket, and we labeled it the Adventure Park. And this one, they actually stuck the term parkour to that park. The other one was more still play equipment. And I'm omitting a ton of detail here too, but just for the sake of like the flow of the presentation. And I wonder if this one will play. Hey, there we go. There's the scissors. So, you know, they do a countdown. You have a little TV crew. This one, they had a pretty big crowd for it too. I don't know where they pulled from, but it's pretty fun. I know. But I think I got the volume up or counting down. Or it's frozen. Hey! And there I am, just cheesing. Okay. So, at this point in my career as well, let's see, I got my hoisting engineer's license so I could actually operate heavy equipment on site. I started just buying third-tier machines, so things that barely run, they all leak, they always have a problem. So I started also to become my own mechanic because I had no money, couldn't afford people to fix things, and then I did get my general contractor's registration, and I think at this point I'd maybe been GCing for 3 or so years. So I started getting more familiar with the back end and the logistical end of pulling permits, understanding all the different disciplines and trades that go into making these kinds of systems. It all kind of built up at the same time. And speaking of the contracting work as well, this is where that woodworking starts to blend into place. So I would take contracts for, this was an attic renovation we did. So this was a dead space. They just had a spiral staircase to cold storage. And he wanted kind of that round shaped arched door. He wanted these custom handrails so the grandkids didn't fall off the balcony. And again, it was just like, yeah, I think I can do this. Sure. So went for that. Did a lot of jobs like this. And then at the same time, we got involved in milling. I had never operated even a chainsaw in my life, but somebody told me you could make your own lumber along the way. And I was like, what? Like, that's really? I had no idea. And my shop is out in Cumberland, so a bit more northern Rhode Island. So we have a lot more access to trees. More people definitely use firewood out there too. So it's kind of more in transit around you. So even in the business park I'm at, my neighbor does firewood, and he was the first one to put me on to, hey, just take this log. After I just bought my first chainsaw, I got a big Stihl, I don't know, the MS660, so a 90cc saw. I did not know how to operate at all. Bought a little Alaskan mill, which is an aluminum jig that holds your saw, and you just ride that down the log to dimension lumber. And then that just kind of took off because we just kept going at it. This is us starting. This is a double-ended Alaskan mill, which we still use today to break down large stock. But jobs would come in, people would we'd either be felling the trees at this, well, maybe that was a little premature. We didn't cut those trees. Those were getting brought in on grapple trucks, just through the pipeline of people I met. This is wicked labor-intensive to this technique, and we still do it, but for this one, we were just doing quarter and riffs on, so we were actually breaking that log down to then put it out to our bandsaw. And there's a little skid steer. Yeah. That you can see it's quartered up. And this is actually the second mill I had bought. I took like let's see, the first mill was a Woodland Mills from Canada. It was like the cheapest entry-level mill you could buy. I took a small loan from a very close friend, and then I split the rest of it with 2 other guys as partners. And then I ended up becoming the only one like milling lumber all day. And so I bought them out eventually once it kind of turned a profit for itself, upgraded it to this Wood Miser, and that was a game changer because that has more automated features, like at least like it would track forward and back on its own on a little electric motor. The first one I started with was still manual, like literally pushed. And then, I mean, now I have another one that's fully hydraulic and all that kind of stuff. But this is all like, yeah, when we were first starting out. So is everybody familiar with milling? And like, I'm omitting a ton of details here. I just don't know what depth to go in for you all. I just want to paint some kind of cohesive picture to make it all land at the end. So we'd have jobs like this. That was for a job in Middlesex, Mass. There's a middle school to high school maybe, and that tree came down on their property. Somehow one of my friends knew the arborist who was doing the job. Arborist reached out to me because they were looking to possibly have it milled for the school's wood shop. I'd never milled anything that size. I think I bought that double-ended mill for that job. And I was like, ugh, I think we could do it. So, you know, we'd end up stacking out our lumber. We also ended up doing pucks too with the same Alaskan mill as a reference. And then I wonder, I probably have a video somewhere on it, but I have a 5-foot by 10-foot CNC in my shop. We ended up surfacing that with a 2-inch fly bit, like a router bit. Same way you do it on a router sled, kind of things like that. So these are all like custom orders that would come in, but per custom order, definitely in the beginning, it was always the first time doing that job. Now there's a couple, things under my belt, but
Are you doing strictly air drying or you're kiln drying also?
so at this point, I mean, we do it all. Yeah, it depends per customer, per job. At that time, I wasn't even aware what kiln drying was. Like, everything was just shooting from the hip. I'm not gonna like pretend that I came up in this and I know it all. Like, I just jump into things raw, just develop it on the way, and correct course as I can. But that's a good example of that. So this is kind of where now it starts to blend. So this was a job that a customer I think I sold firewood to, because we started doing firewood as a byproduct of the milling. You get all the cutoffs, and then, of course, not every log is suited for the mill. And he said, "Hey, John, somebody just dropped all these white oaks. You gotta come pick them up." I said, "Shit, I can't pick up trees. I don't have any equipment." So I just ratcheted them up into my trailer at the back of my truck, got them all in. I didn't know what to do with them until when Tuckett called me. They said, "We want 3 benches. We just, any price, whatever." And I was like, "Holy shit." And they're like, "They either got to be locust or white oak." And I was like, "Oh," I just picked them up. So that was fantastic. So I don't know, things just started to come together. It's not, I don't think it was me doing it. It's just kind of the ether just coming together for you because you're just putting it all out there. But this was one of those first jobs that kind of connected where now we're the contractor, because I did the install too on site with heavy equipment. I did the sourcing of the lumber, well, you can say the logs, the milling of the lumber, the curing of the lumber, the fabrication of the actual object or product, and then I did the install, which I think is on the next bench. Yeah, slide. So that's the Roger Williams Gateway Welcoming Center, which is away from the Roger Williams Park. It's kind of a bizarre thing, but I wasn't involved in that. I was just there to do the benches and put them there and make it look good. Okay, so that's where that portion of the presentation kind of ends. And this is all pre-woodlot. And let's see, to put it on a timeline, this is 2020-ish. I had been a contractor for 6-ish years or so. I was a sawyer, if you will. I had just started to source my own trees because I kind of got put on by that guy saying, "Hey, come pick these up." And I realized, I guess I can actually get my own logs now. Because before it was beg, borrow, steal. Anybody would give me a log, I would just take. If they could drop it off, that was fantastic. I'd pay them a little money. But it kind of empowered me around that time that I could actually do this. I could start to source my own. And that's where I believe I started to catch wind of something that they were referring to as the Urban Wood Chip Depot. They had these really, in my opinion, just clunky names. And I was not sure what they were telling me. It was just all coming in from the Parks Department. And they were just like, "You should look into it. You should look into it. We're going to put an RFP. There's a request for proposal out there. And it's basically an open bid for contractors for projects. And we've been involved on a couple of those when we're doing these park installations. Or those benches were an RFP that I had to bid on and all that. But it was all very confusing at the time and very vague. And I was not sure what that entailed. But Doug Stills, who was the city forester at the time, this was 2 city foresters ago, I had met back when I was doing the parkour thing, because for some reason, I don't remember why, I wanted to plant fruiting trees. I wanted to graft them onto living trees throughout the city, and somebody in the Parks Department that I had met from doing the fitness and parkour classes put me to Doug, and I went on a city tour with Doug. And then he also explained to me why that's not a good idea to do. Fruiting trees in the city, urban environment is going to draw in a lot of pests, essentially. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But that was the first time I got into that. And then Doug, towards the end of his employment with the city, showed me the woodlot, the physical space that it's still on right now, which is actually like 5 minutes away from here on Salem Street, right by the Rhode Island Energy. We share the fence line. And that's where it clicked. They had actually a massive post oak, some white oak, and he had set those aside because he understood the value of those things. And I was like, oh, this is kind of very similar to what I'm doing just already, which is taking these logs, upcycling them, seeing the potential value in them, because these are all discarded. And he was also showing me all the dumpsters they had lined up on site, and that's what they were doing with them. He's like, whatever we can get into a dumpster, whatever we fit into a dumpster we can lift, is what we just toss. Everything else we couldn't lift just stays on site and rots. Between that experience, the request for proposal went out for bid. I just took my shot. I was like, okay, I'm going to submit my concept that with all the urban wood waste, I'm going to upcycle it the same way that I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years or so. And then again, correct my course along the way when I make all these mistakes, because I knew it was going to get into a little bit over my head. So let's see. So at this point, we'll actually jump right into the woodlot. And let's see. Start with this thing. So we're into the second year of my initial contract, which is a 2-year contract. It expires this December. Most likely we'll re-up for another 5-year. And that would secure my place on Salem's lot, or Salem Street, with the woodlot, carry that across the next 5 years to develop it even further. But initially, we're going to jump back 2 years. When I showed up, the dumpsters were just getting pulled off site. There was still a residual mess. And for the past 2 years, that's what I've been doing. Hasn't been a lot of action in terms of sawmilling from what's being brought in. And even like firewood. We just touched firewood 2 years out just to start to process something. A lot of it was cleaning up the physical site, basically property management even, just like with a fence line and how you're like maintaining the overgrowth, which is what I'm responsible for as well. But there's this whole other side, which was all the mixed debris, which was like the brush, really rotted stuff, like we're talking super punky, hollowed out. I never had to contend with before. So like I didn't even own a wood chipper before any of this in my life. And this tool in particular, and he's seen this one, but this is the tub grinder.
A baby tub.
Baby tub grinder. Maybe the biggest one I could get in on that lot without killing my neighbors. But now, things like this have become kind of the bread and butter of the lot to contend with these things that, again, I've never done before. And this is for producing mulch. We're also doing compost with this. This is a means to process what was still left at that lot, and then also built upon because they kept bringing material in as I was trying to catch up and figure out what I'm actually doing. Because part of my responsibility for myself as well is that I have to monetize what I'm doing there. It's an unpaid position, so it's not like voluntary because I get to charge with whatever. I get to keep any material that comes into that lot, kind of first right of refusal, monetize it in a way I see fit. And that's been challenging because it's very much bootstrapping an entire business on top of my other kind of infantile business, which was the contracting work and even the Sawyer kind of work as well. And then within the last 3 years, I've really jumped deep into my actual own sourcing, harvesting, if you will. I'll play a couple clips. These ones are fun. So at this point, I'm climbing lanyard spurs. I got some aerial lift equipment. So this was last winter. We had a plot of planted eastern white pines. We ended up taking about 30 of them out off this property. But we had to be very careful. House is right on site, so we had to zip line a lot away. But we ended up getting some fantastic sections out of these. And so this has been more the practice that's been developing now that I have access to something like the woodlot, and part of my contract that I had to say was like, I need to be able to bring these things in. So when people walk into the woodlot, it's not just waste and debris that the city's bringing in, because they'll bring in an occasional something that's useful, but I'm also bringing in my own stock now that I could never have done before with my shop space in Cumberland. I outgrew that almost instantly. I couldn't even fit all the equipment that I have now at that shop space. So, we'll jump this way too. Is anybody familiar with biochar? A little bit. So biochar, to put it simply, is charcoal. It's distillation of your feedstock, which for myself, I actually have a couple of wood shops I work with in an exchange to take all their cutoffs, all their scrap, and it's my feedstock for my biochar because it ends up making kind of the best. It's already dried out, so it cooks a lot easier and a lot faster, and then you get a more dense product. But biochar is going to be used as a soil amendment supplement, even though you have to inoculate it because it's introducing a microorganism life into that. You can think of it as like housing for microorganisms. And even tomorrow, I have a partner, we're doing a small conference and a small presentation within the Providence Park Department. There's all these other things going on, and I have a meeting or a presentation on this around noon. But essentially, you might recognize these. These would be like scrap wood cutoffs from any of your shops. These go into a kiln that's an inner chamber, and I have a video of this with an outer chamber that you burn around. It's sealed. Basically set it on fire. You open up that lid once it's all cooked out. It's basically a pure form of carbon. And what we're doing with it at the woodlot is adding it to our composting mix. So this is once it's actually crushed and screened. That we're kind of getting out from that tub grinder because we have so much access to carbon and really good carbon stock for composting. And there's also a partnership with Brown University. They deliver leaves throughout the fall season, and we're turning that all into compost, and that's also for disbursements. The point of showing you that is I've never done that either. That was one of those, on the fly, I was looking up, can you build an incinerator for wood? Because I was like, there is a lot of stuff here that's very hard to process. That led me down the rabbit hole of biochar. And that's actually a really powerful one because as a byproduct of even what you guys do, that's a potential outlet. Again, you can monetize it, but for us, it was a good means to an end. And the last little bit, because I'm sure I'm bouncing all over the place, part of my contract here was also to do professional workplace development and some form of education. So when I agreed to that contract for this, no idea what that was going to entail. This season, we ended up training with the fire department in Providence every day of the month for Saturday for chainsaw trainings. They needed the space, and they also needed access to material to practice in, and they just asked if I could just jump in. I felt comfortable enough. I'm not certified in any way. And then I disclosed that, but I'm like, I know how to use a chainsaw pretty well at this point. And so that kind of filled that component. But a lot of these things are kind of filling themselves in. They're meeting actual needs. They're not these artificial kind of things that are getting pushed into the market, which if I draw back to my RISD days, that's kind of what I really did not like. A lot of what we were training to do was kind of make these artificial things and push them on people, try to sell people on the value of it. This project, and that is on site at the woodlot, it's really forming itself. It's filling in kind of all of its own areas that people are seeking. This was RISD grad program. They came through, it's landscape architecture, and they have a materials study course for soil, wood, trees. I was like, oh God, all right, yeah, please come through. So we went through, we talked about all kinds of things that we're doing on site, like the biochar, showed them what the tub grinder is, how to contend with that wood waste, showed them the milling that we do, a couple different techniques, the firewood, and all of which I take for granted because I'm in this every day, so it seems very obvious to me. But with that group, I was kind of reminded again, like, oh yeah, look, a lot of these people have never seen these things or didn't understand how these things are actually processed. So hopefully that kind of fills in where I'm at, where I've come from, I suppose the point of starting off in 2010 with parkour is to show that that kind of got me the in. Once I kind of got involved with that, it led to that job and kind of the blending there of interest and skills being developed across time, because that, has been about a 15-year experience now, and those are through my very formative years. And that's about it. I'll take questions if you have any, and I have plenty of examples of other work, but I have about 10 years of solid examples of almost every kind of work possible.
Jonathan, have you, I think we spoke, have you made it so that your sawmill is now portable, that you would actually go to a job site or to a customer's
Yes.
place and saw? And we've had several opportunities where people have called for sawers. You're in that position now to...
That's actually where I started, interestingly enough, because it was easier to bring a sawmill to the site than it was to bring logs back. The sawmill was on wheels, the logs weren't. Now it's actually opposite. Now it's, most of the time, it's much easier to end up bringing the log to the sawmill where we have all of our tooling. We have the heavy equipment that's much more expensive to bring out to a site to also help manipulate, most of the logs as well.
But it is an option, though.
But it's totally an option. But yeah, like the business end of what I do, I always disclose that. Like most of the time, it's going to be cheaper for me to get those logs here. But yes, it is an option. All my mills are portable.
And you cut them down for the customer.
Yeah.
Cut them down for the customer.
I mean, like early on,
Like I have logwood on my property.
Yeah.
I can call you up and you come up. And
absolutely. Oh, I don't say no. I'm still not thing like I'm like I don't say no to
Okay,
anything.
give me a number.
But that's how I also started in the tree kind of felling, was that a customer like yourself, we'd be there to mill, but they're like, oh, could you cut that tree? I'm like, oh, all right, YouTube, how do you notch a tree? How do you okay, can you do this? And that's really where that started. I just said, yeah, I can do that. Now I know what I'm doing almost. But
I won't let you cut trees. I just let you mill the stuff.
But the other thing of that too that reminds me is when I started doing those things, I think I wrote a list. I just kind of put bubbles of what I was doing, which was like contracting and sawmilling. And I do own the property where my shop is, and there's other tenants. So I'm landlording as well, commercial property, which is a whole other thing. But with the sawmilling, I kind of just broke out like these subsets of ways to monetize. Like how many times over you could get paid to interact almost with the same material from cradle, you can call it the grave, but however you like to refer to it. And what I saw was like, okay, you can get paid for your cutting. You can either get paid for debris removal, chipping, then you get paid for the logistics of transport, then we could get paid for the milling, then we get paid for the curing, then we get paid for the production, either if it's just post-planing, dimensioning, or if we're making product, and then even beyond making the product, getting paid for the install. And that earlier one that I showed, the attic space, oh, actually that was oak, which is a red oak tree. That came from that gentleman's property. We milled it for him, and then years later he wanted to do the attic, and I was like, I'm going to use your oak. And that was one of those first times that I struck everything on that list, and I just tracked the lineage. I was like, holy crap, I got paid like 5 times from the same thing. And I just didn't notice that in these other things that I was doing. It was more one and done. I'd get a job, can you make me this? Sure. And then that was kind of it. So
I have a question. So I just want to understand about the Providence woodlot demo. So is this open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, so we can visit.
Yes.
And then is there milled timber there that's like stickered and available for purchase, or?
So
I'm thinking, is it like a lumber yard? I'm wondering.
Yeah.
My question also, is there available lumber?
Is there available lumber? Yeah.
Which is most of our questions. It's like, can we get wood?
Exactly.
This is basically any woodworker. Can we get wood?
Yes. The short answer is like absolutely.
Okay.
Some of it's predicted out to the spring, so we're going to build storage on site. I'm also going to disclose, like completely, the biggest constraint is financial. It's not hurting on money. It's more just like how to allocate the funds appropriately to also keep up with all the other promises made to that lot. But the lumber, for myself personally, is a massive one. So at the moment, we're in transition. We're basically emptying out the warehouse space that I have in Cumberland, which is where I've been air curing and storing. But most of that would be for a customer. They would already have had the log that we either cut or was delivered. We'd mill, we'd set it aside, most of the time they're just paying a small rental storage space for the air curing time, and then we deliver later out in time. Moving towards the spring, I'm going to try to take this winter to build out something approximate to what we have in Cumberland for on-site storage, a bit of air carrying, and that way people like yourselves can come through and select boards rather than just come in and look at trees and then try to extrapolate, oh, like what does that look like milled? What's the potential in that log? Especially if you've never seen the full process, it's harder for people to understand like how much can come from one log. I usually have a lot of customers who underestimate, I suppose, how much they're going to get in terms of the yield. They don't think they're going to get a lot from what they have in terms of trees coming in. I'm like, no, you'll never be able to make enough with what you're about to get.
So how do we know what you have currently, like in inventory? Do we, like, I'm involved in boat building. We use a lot of uncured green white oak, for example. You know, I don't know if you have like that timber on site. How do we find out? Or some guys might want some cherry or some black locust or something. Do we call and ask what you have in stock? Is there a website?
So the website's being built out too, with the aim being spring. Because the other thing I just have to be personally a little wary of is that contract. You know, in stone, it does expire in December.
Right.
I don't foresee it going under, but if it does, I'm in a pickle. I put a lot into it so far. You know, and so once that is kind of intact, I'm all in. So the website's coming through for the spring, or aiming to come through for the spring. That would be the predominant way to index an inventory, so you could actually see pictures, what's in stock, price points, all that kind of thing. But as of right now, it's just calling. Like, it's very grassroots. It's like my cell phone number was just put out when they asked me, how do we get in touch with any, when we did the ribbon cutting for the woodlot. I was like, just take my cell phone number, give me a call. So that's the easiest way to do it. And unfortunately, there's no great indexing of the inventory right now. I know what I do have, but it's here. And so it just has to be communicated per case. Yeah.
So it's very much a work in process.
Oh, it's a total work in process.
You'll be in your 5-year contract in January.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, do you keep a list of, let's say the city closes, X amount of trees are going to need to come down. Let's say somebody calls and say, I'm looking for a sycamore tree. Would you say, okay, yeah, I know where there's a sycamore tree that I can take down?
Yeah, so the city does keep a cut list, but a lot of the time it's not like what we're imagining for removals. They're really selective about, well, keeping trees, right?
Yeah.
Is a priority in treatment. And the ones coming out are generally storm damaged, insect infested, sometimes it's desirable, you know, just completely rotted out, or some type of liability, encroaching on a private property or power, like utilities, things like that. So we haven't had the case yet where I could like project on a list in the future with the current city forester, and for that example, like, oh, no, I know a sycamore coming down. More of that is, and even when you're asking about white oak, it's like, I have 3 jobs right now that I'm all felling oak on. More of that is built in from my personal business. And usually if somebody were like, oh, sycamore, I have access to land. And basically a pretty good chance to run into it across the network that I have at the moment. The city, like, I'm not in control of that end of it. I don't run forestry department. So it's like kind of hands off. But from a personal standpoint, most likely, yes, I can source a lot.
Is there anything we can do to help you promote yourself and get that 5-year contract? I mean, can we call? I mean, how is that being managed? Is it through the forestry department or?
So Parks and Rec is the primary, and forestry is a division of Parks and Rec, and they're the ones maintaining the entire canopy in Providence, throughout every park, but every city tree as well. So I'm always in direct communication with city forester, superintendent, all of them.
Who's making the decision, for example, on your contract that we could maybe contact?
Who's pulling strings? Hard to say. I believe it's actually the superintendent. So Wendy Nelson of Parks. Wendy Nelson is the superintendent, and I suppose, yeah, saying like we love
Is this
it.
a budget item for them, or is this a grant item for them?
So for them, it's a budget reduction. They were spending $30,000-$80,000 a year in dumpster fees alone to throw wood away. Instead, they flipped the situation. Is really like anybody willing to do this for just access to the lot and the material. I said yes. But coming from the commercial real estate end, I was like, oh, I couldn't afford to rent a space like this. Like, that's a very small price to pay for access to a lot that size. It's about 50,000 square feet in Providence, right off Route 10. It's like, you couldn't afford, well, I can't afford that. So I was like, all right, you just need to dice up some trees. We're there.
I'm just curious, where would they haul, bins of wood to get?
Oh, Johnson landfill.
Really?
But they do composting. And I believe the city in Providence was buying the compost from them. So they were losing like twice, yeah. It's wild. Yeah.
Curious about how much of the biochar that they could sell at a filter for like $4
That's what we're talking about tomorrow at our conference. That they are doing an initial testing in some of the storm drainage. And so we're working on the back end. Even today, we're finishing up one of our screening prototypes because we have to post-process out of the kiln. And so just coming up with different screen sizes to meet the criteria for water filtration. Right now, we've only been doing 1/4 inch minus, crushed and screened, but it needs to be a larger aggregate for the water filtration. Yeah, so we're working on that one. That's not even that bad. That's like the easy part.
Are there any other questions for John at all at this point? But I think before I leave, I'd like to connect with you and find out about Wendy and others that we can canvass and see if we can push this along.
Yeah, I would appreciate any good
How does your pricing work? Like if we just pulled up to the woodlot, how do we use a cash only card?
I mean, in terms of payment, I'm at the point where I'll accept any form of payment. Those things are in place from the contracting world. But
We heard you took peanuts. We heard earlier.
I still take beer. Well, guy paid me a beer. He came there with firewood. He's like, "You like beer?" I'm like, "All right, whatever." I was like, "Sure, whatever you want." Yeah, no, it's Wild West right now. I'm being completely honest. It's all on the fly, but it's very fair because this is all being given. You know, it's essentially just coming in. At the moment, I'm focused on moving it, getting a good flow of product. So a lot of the people who have come in so far, I mean, it's a fantastic deal. Most of it is almost just like, take it, please. Like, only very specialty things that we've set aside that I already have kind of a pricing model around, that would be where it's like a normal market rate. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.